Hi, welcome to another consonant analysis. This consonant analysis is on the subject of Jeffrey Epstein's alleged suicide. And I've got like a 16-page report here I'm going to try and get through. So the quotation that I've got is, it's apparently from the Metropolitan Correctional Centre, but I strongly believe actually it was issued by them, but the actual statement was actually made by a medical professional, and I'll go into my reasons for that. So the extract reads, Saturday, August the 10th, 2019, at approximately 6:30 a.m, inmate Jeffrey Edward Epstein was found unresponsive in his cell, subsequently pronounced dead by hospital staff. So that's actually, it's an extract from a newspaper. I can't actually remember which newspaper it is now, but obviously you could Google that. And what they've done is they've just like they've sort of like taken the relevant bits out. So anyway, it still allows me to analyse it. And what I've done is I've broken the extract down into various components, various bits. And you'll see that in the report, those are like colour coded. So there's like different colours, different blocks of colours that correspond to the different areas or themes, which I'm going to go on to. So the context, if you don't already know, is that having been prominent in the news worldwide for several years, Jeffrey Epstein, the infamous millionaire, was declared dead while being incarcerated in jail on criminal charges. His death is an apparent suicide. Now, the thing is, it's the whole thing about Jeffrey Epstein. It's like it's very strange the way that everything's gone on. It's very strange from him muzzling judges and from dodging the authorities on technicalities and things just being locked down. And then the later revelations that perhaps he was, by Jesse Ventura, that perhaps he was like a CIA asset and all of these types of things. Incredible. And then his black book, that had the names of royals and presidents and famous influential people around the world. Absolutely amazing. And this current state of the saga, or stage of the saga, is no different, because prior to the 29th of July, he was actually on suicide watch. And now, prior to him being incarcerated, he had actually mentioned that there were people that were after him. He strongly believed there were people trying to kill him. And so several days ago, he was found on his jail cell floor, apparently. And I mentioned that in my previous analysis of him. And he got like ligature marks around his neck, which indicated suicide. Now, how he actually managed to get hold of something to commit suicide with, God only knows, because there shouldn't be that type of material in jail, obviously for that exact reason. But on the 29th of July, apparently after being on suicide watch, he was taken off suicide watch. Why he'd do that, I don't know. Especially with such a high-profile criminal. And he was taken into a separate facility. And this all lends itself to my theory, which is that he was basically taken there so it's more convenient to actually stage his death away from the prying eyes of other inmates. So anyway, so with regards to the various sections of the extract, I'll just go through those now. So the first extract is, just in summary, the first extract, or the first block, is to do with the hospital staff. The second is to do with the pronouncement of death. The third is to do with the plan, the escape plan, as I state that there was. The fourth block is to do with the actor, more about his name really, and what it means, what the consonant analysis of it is. I've previously done a consonant analysis of Jeffrey Epstein, but now we've got his full name here of Jeffrey Edward Epstein, which sort of like puts a further spin on things. And finally, we have the implementation of the. I think there's some builders doing something. Sorry about that noise. the implementation of the plan, how he actually, managed to escape. Now, what it is, I've actually put in detail. I've actually given a blurb. I've given all of the markers for each particular section, and you can read those at your leisure. I won't read those here because they're too long and too weighty. And in some cases, what I've done is I've paraphrased them. So at the end, what I've done is I've actually put a summary, and I'm going to read the summaries very quickly, so you get an idea or a flavour of where it is that I'm coming from with my particular interpretation. And you'll notice that at the beginning and end of each, at the beginning or at the end of one block of interpretation in the highlights, and at the start of the other, the themes are linked. There's a link between the themes. You'll see the link, how one gives rise to the other, and I've highlighted those in the various colours. So anyway, with hospital staff, what I've put is these markers could be interpreted to mean that a doctor or nurse prepared and administered medication as they spoke to the subject. The crossover between the pink and cyan highlighted markers is the point where the subject takes a turn for the worse and gives up all hope. Yeah, and the actual phrase hospital staff in the extract is actually covered by one block. So the next colour block is the pink block, which is to do with pronouncement of death. And I've put here the markers for the word pronouncement, subsequently pronounced dead by, could be interpreted as follows. So these points could be interpreted to indicate that someone was paid to drug the subject and process him as a dead body and handle him. At the time of death, a doctor, I presume, would need to be present to pronounce death. So they'd have to be there. They couldn't, I mean, we don't actually know when he was pronounced dead, whether it was, in the jail cell or when he actually got to hospital. Who knows, But he's out of the frame now, basically. So they cover all these markers for the dark blue section. They cover all the things necessary to make faking a death necessary, right down to paying off people and the body bag. So all those markers could be interpreted to indicate that. Given the detail, it seems there was a lot of detail in this area. Given the detail, it seems reasonable to assume that the person who prepared the statement was someone who is in on the job. And the reason why I say that is when I come on to exact markers, I'll explain. There's a strange nuance in the exact markers, which I'll come on to, which leads me to believe it was it was actually the doctor or a medical professional who was directly involved who actually prepared that statement for New York police to read out. So moving on to the dark blue block, which is to do with the plan, the actual plan itself, and these correlate to the block correlates to the words "was found unresponsive in his cell." Yeah, so I've put here these points could be the markers for this particular section or this particular block of the extract could be interpreted to indicate that the subject intends to create a ruse in order to escape and carry on with his own ways. So you get this idea in your head of he's in the jail cell and he's going to get out basically, and once he gets out he's going to carry on just as he did before. Although, as you'll find with the analysis that I'm going to come on to shortly with Michael Jackson, it don't work like that. If you're disappeared and you're such a high-profile person, you're not coming back, and your life's not going to be the same. You'll technically be in a virtual prison, for the rest of your life, basically, unless you can have your features altered, with plastic surgery, which is possible now with what is it? Yeah, people can actually have face transplants now. If you want to Google that. So moving on to his name, yeah. So basically, when I go into the themes, there's red. I've colour coded them red and green, and actually in the blocks, the blocks of text, they're colour coded as well, red and green. So the consonants and words highlighted in red cover the space occupied by the subject's name. These are highlighted in the markers in exact. The themes covered by these highlighted consonants are detailed in the theme sections under name, but in summary include the areas of quick thinking, deceit, and actively encouraging immoral behaviour. So you'll see them when I go on to themes. And the green sections, the green highlighted block of text, that basically that's actually over his name as well, over the subject's name, and they could be in summary said to mean or relate to cowardice and living an easy, facilitated lifestyle. So he doesn't want to be bothered. He doesn't really have to do much. Right, block 4 in the extract is yellow, and this covers the phrase Saturday, August 10th, 2019, at approximately 6:30 a.m. inmate. And what I've put for those in summary, because there's quite a lot of markers for that, what I've done is I put these points could be interpreted to indicate that although being paid and serving a purpose, the subject has had enough and wants to get out to pursue a continued life of debauchery. Present with him is a medical professional, possibly a doctor, who is on hand to prepare and administer the medication necessary for the plan to work. As the patient slumps into unconsciousness, he sways and totters incoherently, muttering his plans to himself as the doctor monitors closely. In awe of the person who lays before him, he walks off nonchalantly, having performed his job. So that's the coloured blocks of text, the themes that I've coloured the text in, or the extract in, and just below the text, obviously, usually is the code, and the corresponding codes or consonants are actually colour coded identically. And moving from cyan to magenta or pink to dark blue to red to green to red, and then finally to yellow. So if you actually look, you can see them there. Yeah. So I've just been reading along those, and it gives a coherent story. So moving on to comments now. 1, the smile. The interesting thing about the word to smile is it occurs 6 times in the markers, and it's sort of like doubly emphasized. It's like it's not. Now it's actually not an exact marker, but because the definition for the 2 markers on either side of where this marker would fall are exactly the same. It's to smile and to give a friendly smile or give a friendly appearance. What I've done is I've just basically made it an exact marker because I don't really see the difference, to tell you the truth. And the thing is, the interesting thing about it is it occurs twice. It occurs twice in the exact markers, but in different places in the block. In the first place, it occurs right at the beginning, basically right at the beginning of the exact markers. And in the first place, it occurs in the, it occurs with hospital staff, on the blocks to do with hospital staff. So like the hospital staff are smiling, yeah? And the second time it occurs is with regards to the plan, yeah? With regards to the plan, yeah? So what that leads me to believe is that in the situation, the hospital staff person was actually smiling. Now, why would he be smiling? I don't know. But given everything else, the preponderance of everything else in the narrative, it's like he was in on the job. He was actually smiling at Epstein, and Epstein, who has the plan, was actually smiling back at him. That's the interpretation that I've pulled out from that. And also the fact of like an exchange comes across, because when you read the exact markers, those two markers in the different blocks actually occur next to each other in sequence, in the sequence that they actually occur in the narrative. They actually occur in sequence, one after the other. So it's like one is smiling, and then the other is smiling back. So like giving each other a nod or a wink. So I'll just carry on what I've put for smile. So So, as I've said, the marker to smile occurs in the exact markers 6 times and indicates reassurance. Given that it occurs in both the cyan, hospital staff, and blue, plan highlighted segments of the code, it would indicate that the hospital staff were those who implemented the plan. Also, as the narrative is coherent and is taken entirely from the extract as is, it would suggest that the extract, while being read out by someone from the correctional facility, was actually prepared by the person who is here identified as the hospital staff. It could be interpreted to infer that the hospital staff were directly responsible for the subject's apparent death, I say, not actual death, because the analysis, the way that's led me is that it's not actual death. And actually, in a newspaper article, I think it was the Guardian, they were very careful. You've always got to be on the lookout for these things, but when a newspaper uses the word apparent, what they're doing is they're not committing themselves to the fact that it actually happened. So therefore, if it didn't happen, they can always give back word and say, well, we never said it happened, we just said it was apparent. So even we haven't got all the evidence yet to suggest that it did actually happen. Comments 2. Joins and boundaries. One of the interesting aspects of words is how they are arranged. For example, look at the name of the subject, how the name of the subject influences not only his behaviour and life, but how it affects the words to which he is joined. The words that he's literally joined to in the statement. Jeffrey Edward Epstein, how it's linked to the words, and how it changes the meaning of those words as it interacts with them. And obviously his name I actually come on to later in the themes. The end of the code highlighted in blue, interpreted as being the plan, joins to the subject's name, and the love for raw flesh and trickery is transformed into making a clean break and having a free rein once again. So it gets transformed just like that, which was the change of the words. His name actually influences the words around it, and those words actually influence his name. It's quite remarkable, it's quite interesting, but that's how words work. Any other word after his name would modify its meaning also, giving rise to the advice that you must be careful not only what company you keep, but of the words that you hear them say. Our speech or the speech of others directly affects our actions and life, often in ways that we're not aware of. So you've got to be careful of the company that you keep. It's an old English idiom, and it's very true as well, as I'm sure many people will testify. Point 3 in comments, exact markers. These usually seem to give an overview or framework to better understand the markers as a whole. In this case, the story is of someone suddenly finding a way to escape and get back to his old life of power and control, but having to bear the inconveniences in the meantime. The first marker for escaping provides the notion that the subject is in fact not dead. So that's actually the first marker in the exact markers. And just to reiterate, if you're new to my videos, exact markers and inexact markers, what are they? Exact markers are they're markers I've taken from the source reference, as they match up directly with a marker that I found in the text. A marker is just three consonants, and I match them up with the source reference. And with exact markers, they match exactly. And what I find is they give, when you put them together, they take less interpretation. They give a more exact meaning and a skeleton for the rest of the markers. You can fit the rest of the markers in there. It forms a story usually. The inexact markers are the consonant strings of three letters that don't actually exist in the source reference. They exist between two exact markers in the source reference. So what I do when I encounter an inexact marker is I put in brackets the two markers wouldn't have to actually exist in the source reference around where that marker would actually fit if it did exist. So here I've just explained that in the exact markers, when you read them, if you go into the report, which is in the description below, what you'll find is that they sort of like form a narrative, as I've just mentioned, that somebody's basically trying to escape and he's just having to wait his time. He's not really liking it very much. Although he does seem to be smiling on a lot of his photographs, so he looks old and shabby, but he does seem to be smiling. Just finally, there's a newspaper article that I found, and it's entitled 7 Critical Questions from Prison Insiders That Need to Be Answered. And it harks back to this thing I said in the beginning about how it's very strange, his the circumstances surrounding his whole life and for the last several years, and now with this incident are very strange. It's like, how did he manage to commit suicide? Was nobody watching him? How did he do it? All these types of things. And indeed, it comes out in this article. And what you'll do is you'll find that in the source materials link in the description below. So if you just click on that, it'll take you to a flipboard, and then obviously you can find the relevant article. So that's the thing that's flowing around at the moment, is how did it happen? Did it, like a quote here, did a prison guard just win the lottery? And as I say in this analysis, the theory is that the subject is alive, he's not dead. So quickly moving on to themes. With themes, all I've done is I've actually just concentrated on Jeffrey Epstein's name. I think that's sufficient. And as in the coloured blocks in the quotation and the code on the first page of my report, I've colour coded them green and red. So red refers to like the more negative connotations of his name, and the green ones refer to the less unfavourable, so the more favourable, but to do with ease and type of lifestyle, that type of thing. So the red ones, I'll go through those: acquisition, advantage taking, cheating, coaxing, cloaking, concealing, deception, designs, dirty, dodging, ensnaring, enticing, escaping evil, filthy, flattery, friendliness, hoax, lies, loss personal, luring, obscenity, prowling, seduction, spontaneity, tempting, and tricking. And you think that would be enough. All these words actually come out directly out of the markers, so I've just pulled them out. The green, the ones that I've colored in green, that are connected with his name, are aid, cowardice, ease, humouring, prosperity, rich, support, and success. So moving on to the markers. So I won't actually go over these in detail, and definitely not the inexact markers. But just to point out to you that with the exact markers, the one that stands out, the ones that stand out for me basically are the ones to do with escape, and also the smiling, because that's unusual. If you look at the extract is a perfunctory statement which has been issued by an official body. Yeah, there should be no references to smiling in there, but yeah, there's like 6, and it's quite it stands out, and it sort of like sets the scene for everything else in the whole report. As far as I'm concerned, it's an artifact, and what I often find in when I'm conducting analyses is when these artifacts appear, they send out a message, a very big message, because they shouldn't be there. Yeah. And I've certainly never had that before. That's the first time having this particular marker occur so many times. And like I said, with the first marker is actually about to escape. Yeah, and this is a definite marker. So it's not there for no reason, And so those basically are the linchpins, or the basis on which I've formed the rest of my analysis, that he's alive, he's escaped. It's as simple as that. And what I would say, with somebody who's so well connected and he's so infamous, it's going to go 2 ways, isn't it? He's going to have lots of enemies, yeah? But more than likely, because he's been protected so long, that's going to have continued. And, the boys, which presumably is the establishment, because they're the ones that have been sat on their hands and not saying anything, they're not going to let their boy slide. They're going to look after him, and that's what's happened. That's my interpretation anyway, just based on those markers alone, but then if you go into the rest of the report, well, it sort of like speaks for itself. So that's all I have for you at the moment with regards to Jeffrey Epstein. Whether he resurfaces wearing some latex prosthetic as I sort of like come on to with my Michael Jackson analysis in my next video. Who knows? But anyway, that's all I have for you today. But thank you very much for joining me and taking part in this analysis. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. It's been wonderful having you. The links to my report and source materials are in the description below. If you want to find out more about consonant analysis and what it is, in my disclaimer and about link in the description below, you'll find information about that. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, have a super wonderful day.